Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Actors Buzz. It is a brand new, I have used the word fledgling before, but I'm not a huge fan of the visuals that come with fledgling. I picture baby birds crashing out of trees, and that's not really something that I want.
Super healthy.
So, new podcast. The goal here is it's by actors, for actors, and I'm talking about actors in the grind, people currently auditioning, people currently out there working on their self tapes and waiting on callbacks. It's for you by actors going through exactly what you're going through. So that's the goal, is just to create a community, a space. We want to hear from you, comment, do all of the things, the like, subscribe, the bells, the whistles, whatever icon is present on whatever you're listening to us on, click those things and then comment, because we want to hear from you. So I'm Misty, and this is I'm going to try to find the right way to introduce you. The ever thinking, constantly analyzing, driest sense of humor having, pun giver, eyebrow raising friend of mine, Josh Steinhaus. Welcome,
Some of
Josh.
them even sounded close to compliments.
Those are compliments. You know how
you also missed most talented.
I did. Star cut. We'll do it again. No, I'm kidding. Josh, welcome.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. Very excited to be here. This particular topic is a high interest of mine for many reasons. So I'm looking forward to
tell them what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the whole point here is so the question we're sort of answering or discussing here is acting therapeutic, but what's really underneath that is acting and mental health, as well as mental health in general, I think is what we'll end up getting into as well. I mean, the short, easy answer is acting therapeutic? Yes, because otherwise, if it was a miserable time, no one would do it, right? There is some level of, catharsis happening anytime someone decides to get on stage in front of, potentially thousands of strangers. You could also argue that anybody that's willing to do that needs some mental health. So it goes both ways.
True.
I strongly believe, hopefully you've seen that already, that mental health should be available for everyone. And acting was a way that I was able to find that. And so I do think acting is therapeutic, especially for myself, but I also think that it is something that allows me to find that therapy in a way that is not just talking to a mental health professional, which is something I have done, happy to admit it, happy to talk about any of that, but it's a more experiential outlet than just the typical couch sitting. So I have found acting to be therapeutic for myself especially, but I also am happy to admit when I need therapy and have gone to therapy.
How do you, so as a director, one of the things, and I think you know this about me, but all of you out there, both of you, don't know about me, is that I am constantly keeping an eye on the mental health of the actors that I'm working with. I am very tuned into that, probably because of my own walk and my own journey, but also because I think that there are plenty of real life stories out there where we have seen what happens when that is not taken care of for actors. So I guess, how do you explain what a cathartic experience would be like as an actor? How does that play out, that I worked some stuff out there,
So I'm an arrogant son of a bitch, and so for me, it's when I know I nailed the scene, right? Some actors love to cry, and that's it. That's the way they get it out, right? Some actors go full Daniel Day-Lewis, and you can't talk to them if you're doing something Victorian unless you have an old-timey telegram handy, right?
Right.
People be people, right? For me, I have acted long enough that I know when I have done well and I know when I haven't. So I like doing well, right? I like doing well at the things I do. And so that's enough for me. But I know that sometimes if you've got a powerful scene, right? If there's a lot of emotion buried in, and I don't even just mean sad emotions, right? If you've got a really happy emotion, right? If you've got to really get those out there, sometimes people need a break, and a good director will either recognize that in the moment or plan for it in advance.
Right.
I don't think that there's too many, Hitchcocks out there, or who's the one that messed with the one that directed The Shining.
Oh, Kubrick.
Kubrick, right? Like, you're not hearing the abusive director stories anymore, because they're not going to make it. They're not going to last, right?
Right.
You could be a jerk. You can't be an asshole, depending on draw your own lines there, right? There are arrogant directors, and fair enough, but you cannot be abusive. A, there's union laws now, and B, you just won't make it, right? People will not respond to you as an asshole director anymore, because mental health in the theater and acting community, I think, has become much more prevalent.
Yes, and I think there are choices and options now that didn't exist, right? I mean, independent films, there are 1,000 streaming platforms producing their own material, giving lesser known directors a chance, I just think that there's more doors in front of us. So you may be a director who is damn near abusive, and you may produce a good movie, but as soon as the press junket is done and you're done, promoting, and it hits, it's more likely than not that word is going to leak, and you're even going to see the sales of your movie tank, because we've just become more aware, I think, of the fallout.
Yeah, word gets around, right? And so now, I'm going to flip the question on you a little bit as a director, right? So if you need a response from someone that you're not getting because the scene calls for it, right? You need that high, intense, emotional, dramatic moment. And you know that you don't want to push them to a breaking point, right? You don't want to cause someone to have a mental break, in themselves, but you need to push harder. How do you, as maybe you don't have to necessarily answer this, might be a little bit rhetorical, but how do you as a director push when you need to push without being the Kubrick or the Hitchcock?
I ask questions. For me as a director, it's not to put you in a place. It's not to manipulate your emotions or to send you to a place where you're reliving your deepest, darkest trauma. And once I've got you in that moment and you're feeling it, now I go, all right, action, use it. I hate that phrase in directing, find the pain. Now use that pain. No, first of all, I think it gives credit to the trauma. It gives credit to trauma for producing something beautiful, when my belief is we become something beautiful in spite of, not because of. And so I think that plays out in my directing. It's a question of vulnerability, which is probably, for a lot of actors, that's where the gates come up. I feel like I can pretend to be grief-stricken really effectively. I can even produce actual tears, but if it's not authentic, I don't feel it yet. And so we'll talk about that. What are the gates you're throwing up? Why the guardrails? Frankly, if you don't feel safe on set, if you don't trust the people you're working with, it's damn near impossible to come with that authentic vulnerability, because I don't trust you people. I don't trust this group. I don't trust my co-star. I don't trust the director. So you have to spend time building trust and knowing that I'm going to get real vulnerable here and real raw, and it's not going to be something held against me, So for me, that's it. It's asking questions, and then it's checking the atmosphere. If they're feeling guarded, what have I not done to build that safety net so that they trust me and their co-stars, So
coincidentally, I read an article today about the Robin Williams film Jumanji, right? Which done several sequels, all of which were far better than I ever thought they would be.
Right.
They're pretty good. But I read one of these random trivia, listicles I found. because the movie itself wasn't as comedic as Robin Williams planned, he apparently was having a hard time with the drama, right? He wasn't getting into it as well. So there's a scene at the very end, climax of the scene, where the hunter actually shoots Robin Williams' character. It's like right at the end of the film. And Robin wasn't reacting well enough, I guess, for it, right? And, the director wasn't a prick, right? He wasn't saying, act harder, damn it, right? But he needed more authentic. So apparently what he did, he got blanks in the gun, obviously, but he added like some sort of popper or sound, basically made the gun sound really loud, right? And he warned everybody else except Robin. So they set up the scene, guy shoots, and bam, and Robin backs up. And what you see in the film is his honest reaction, because he didn't right? So apparently the trick here is that if you ever need somebody to act surprised, shoot them. That's what I took away from that.
How about if you ever need authentic surprise somebody?
Yeah, sure. That's whatever. Either way. But your point at the end there, where you were talking about people getting too into it, right? One of the dangers of acting, especially with high intense emotion, is that you go in deep, right? You start climbing into that well, and you don't have a way out. And getting rid of that baggage, getting rid of all of that at the end, especially when it may be cathartic, but that doesn't mean that you don't need aftercare, right?
Right.
It's tough, and it's tough to do on stage every night for a play, but it's I would even argue perhaps more tough to do scene after scene after take on a film set. Chris Evans bawling his eyes out as Captain America at the end of the scene, when he's got CGI and cameras and tennis balls to hold raccoon places, right? Like, it's even harder to get into that stage. And then if you get into it with all that around you, you got to come out of it, right? And for me, I have learned to separate out who I'm playing versus who I am, right? And I've been trained in how to do that. I know how to do that, but either for newer actors or for actors that perhaps can't do it, what you're seeing in them is so authentic and so real. No matter how experienced they are, they bring it all the way down to that well. It's tough, and there's not really a good trick to it, right? It's not like there's a magic cure to say, okay, scene's over, go get a balloon now, right? For me, you made the joke at the beginning of this that I have a very dry wit. That's my go-to, right? At worst, I'll make a stupid joke and it'll break the tension, or it won't. It was a really terrible joke. Either way, but that's what I try to do when I think someone's in need, because I'm not going to go to the I'm not overly gushy with emotional support. It's just not who I am, right? There are some people that will sit there and cry right along with you, and that comfort and that, it's like a hug from a mom, right? That type of thing. That's not me. And if they need that, there's people on set that can give them to that. I do what I can with what I got, right? But I will cry, I will scream, I will rage, I will yell in a scene, and I can come out of it and be done. Because what I'm thinking about is, do I need to do it again? That's the thought that goes into my head, right? Do I need to do that again? And if so, I got to get back into where I was. So I'm already moving forward. But I'm a pragmatic robot son of a bitch. So, what do you want from me?
It's so interesting. So I think that while we teach and learn and train on how to tap into those deeper, authentic, kind of raw moments, a lot of times the training and the practice of coming back up out of them is left untended, because at the end of the day, your art is a product. If you're trying to get a paycheck for this, then it's a product. And that means that the concern for the business is, did you produce the product? And then once we have the product, quick, sell it. It's not to then follow up with you and say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Have we managed to pull up out of that? So it really does become the onus of the actor to figure out what works for you. How do you come back to yourself whole? And how do you leave the baggage from the character with the character? And
Well, and I think this goes back to our therapy and mental health piece, because there should be a space and there should be a comfort on set. As you said, there should be trust on set that if I bawl my eyes out and you say cut, I should be able to say I need a minute. And I
right,
should be given that minute, right?
right,
And everybody in the room should be like, great, we're gonna go do other things. We're gonna take a bathroom break. We're gonna
hmm
go on Facebook, right? Whatever it is, right? Give him the minute he needs.
hmm
Um, it's funny. I listen to a couple podcasts. One is Zach Braff and Donald Faison, who are the stars of Scrubs, do a rewatch podcast, and Zach Braff was talking about how the way that the camera is shot, right? So when you do multiple takes on a TV show, you start off way back, right? You get a full
hmm
shot of the whole room and everybody in it, right? And then eventually you start cutting closer and closer. So like,
hmm
the 10th or 12th take is, just his eyeball and half his nose or whatever, right?
right,
And his whole piece on that was that if you let it all out in that first take, you got to do it 10 more times. There just might not be anything left in the tank by the time
yeah,
you're done, right? And if it's one scene that's taken all day, you are so emotionally exhausted. There's not an actor on earth who can keep that going for 10 hours, right?
right, right,
And you are emotionally exhausted, you're mentally exhausted, and you got to keep doing it. So he actually said that because he knows they're going to do it closer every time for certain things, he's holding some back initially, right?
hmm
Because that's never the take they're going to use, right? That it's just
right,
an establishing shot. Now, it's not every single scene ever is always zoomed in that close, so you got to know as an actor what's going through the director's head. But he actually he talks about, if you got to do it time and time and time and time again, whether it's theater or TV or movies, maybe you don't give it all in on
hmm
go one.
Yep. It's funny because I, for myself, the difference between the actor and the director in me is the actor, I have learned to hold my emotions closer to the surface on filming days. The process of kind of priming the pump, if you will. There's playlists that I listen to. There's specific music. I have playlists built for different emotions so that my senses are already kind of there. And so I try to hold those emotions a little closer to the surface, so the process of tapping into them isn't quite as exhaustive. And then once it's done, you just, I set that aside. But I have a process for that too. If music is what gets you into your emotive place, then make damn sure you have a playlist ready to go. That's all you. That's just you. That's your jam list, the stuff that you can't sit still. It makes you, whatever. It's the mood lifter that goes in, and I'm playing that. And it's key that, again, I think there's for every actor, there is a process that will work, but you have to hold self-responsibility to find it and to be aware of it and not to forget to use it. Like, don't take that garbage home with you.
Yeah, and it's funny because we're talking here about those deep, big emotional moments, right? The stuff that requires all of you, right? But even if you're doing something more casual, for me, the reason acting is therapeutic is because the entirety of it, even if I'm just sitting in the back waiting for my lines, allows me to be involved and experience something, right?
Mhm.
And I think that, so I'll give you a great example of personally. So from, I want to say 3 years old to about 8th grade, so 13, 14, I had a massive speech impediment. You'd never know it. You'd never hear it unless you're looking for it. But there was no way on earth I was getting in front of anybody, which is interesting because I actually started acting in kindergarten, and I had this battle between not wanting anyone to hear me, but wanting everyone to see me because, again, an arrogant son of a bitch. So massive overconfident 6-year-old who didn't want to actually talk on stage. It's a great combo. I did do speech therapy for a while, but the acting actually helped more, because what is acting in dialogue other than enunciation, pronunciation, volume control, right?
Yeah.
And so high school came around and I was done speech therapy. I didn't need it anymore. And so even just something like that, something that had nothing to do with acting per se, right? A speech impediment, is not, you're not going to tie that to acting, allowed me to get into theater because it was a way for me to break free of something that I was very self-conscious about, right? That caused an emotional stress, right?
Yep.
I've had parts that have been absolutely the antithesis of what I am as a person. I've had parts that were written for me, right? Both, and I'm both literal and figurative. I've been in plays that were written for me. And that entire world of theater to me is absolutely therapeutic. There is a theater culture, there's a mindset, there's a performing arts mentality once you really get into the community that I think is inherently freeing, because it is a place where everybody is experiencing the same thing, right? It is a place where you have to bring who you are and you have to build that trust on set. And the only way to do that is to be you. And as long as you're not a prick, you're going to build that sense of community, and everybody's got their own stories and their own background. And that is therapeutic. Whether, I don't care if you're an acting community or any sort of other fan base or talent or work, whatever you do, there's somebody that does it with you, and you can have that experience together. Shared experiences will always be therapeutic because they create a community.
Yeah, and we need it. We need community. And I think to your point, when you're describing that community, you're also describing that for that precious time that you're part of this, I'm going to practice rehearsal, we're filming today, we're on set today, we're doing set construction today, whatever it is, I am forced to not think about the thing in my life that isn't right now. And I can take the irony, the spotlight off of me and place it on my character, which gives me that mental break. A lot of times we get in a loop in our head, and whatever it is goes from a passing thought to something we're concentrating on, to an obsession, and now I can't get myself out of this loop. I'm just worried, I'm anxious, and it's like a tape on an unending loop. But if I am in an activity, and especially if I'm as a character, I have to, by nature, shut that down and be in my character's life for the day, for the 3 hours, for whatever. It's a break from whatever it is that's going on in my life that I'm trapped in. And there's just the natural catharsis of empathy, stepping outside of yourself to view the world, to look at people around you and get perspective and realize, that, okay, Misty, chill. We were taking that to a whole place it didn't need to be.
And in fact, not only do you build up empathy, I think if you pursue acting professionally, at the very least, you're building up resilience. How many times have you gotten turned down for auditions, right? You get told no often enough, you're gonna hit a mental health wall, right? Like, am I good enough? Should I actually be doing this? Is this the right thing for me? Am I just terrible, right? You keep getting told no, 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 no. You need to find a way to push through it, right? I mean, that's job interviews too, but acting especially is reliant on talent, right? That it is a talent-based, career path. And so you need to not only build up your self-confidence, but have an outlet for when that rejection comes, right? As long as your outlet is healthy, and I use healthy broadly, but as long as you're not abusing yourself or others, that's fine. But that's mental health. That's therapy, right? You don't have to go see a therapist because you got told no. But there's a saying that I saw, I don't remember where, but I stole it and I love it, and hell, I'll claim credit for it because who the hell knows, right? So, quote is, working on your physical health makes you live longer. Working on your mental health makes you live better, right? And people who see going to seek out mental health as a weakness or as vulnerability or as unnecessary, I always try to compare it to physical health, because if you're going to work in any way on your physical health, whether that is changing the way you eat, whether that is exercising more, whether that is in any capacity, changing your routine for your physical health, you're stretching muscles, you're doing new things, your body is adapting to the goal that you are setting for yourself. If you are going to put all that time and work into your body and your physical health, why would you not do that for your mental health, right? Your mental state, your emotional state, your behavior, your psychology, drives who you are, frankly, far more than your body does, right? And especially in times of need, right? So if I break my leg, I'm going to have to go to
Yeah.
physical therapy, right? If I break my heart, I should probably go to a therapist, right?
Right.
It's really no different. And the stigma that goes around it, and the boxed in notion of what therapy looks like
Mm,
is what constricts people and what limits people, right? But if they can see acting as a way to seek out therapy and mental health balance, fantastic. I do. That's absolutely an avenue for me.
I want to cover the I don't want to say the dark side, but I do think I have, well, I don't think, I know I've worked with actors who are longing to play a part. They're looking for a part that is super close to some personal trauma as a way to work through that trauma. And I know how I feel about this. But are there, tell me your thoughts
Is
on
there a
that.
bad side to therapy and acting? Right? Is that what you're going at?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so, I'll answer the statement blanket wise with yes, everything has its danger, right? You always need to be safe. So at my what I call my big boy grown up job, right? I do a lot of teaching, and one of the courses I teach is actually ethical engagement. And it's
mm,
about how you as the corporation can act and create a space of what I call comfort, happiness, and safety, right? So are you comfortable, happy, and safe, and are making others feel comfortable, happy, and safe, right? And that's sort of the mantra of the course. And I'm bringing that up because there is very few places in community wise that I know of where you are more vulnerable than in acting, right?
mm,
At least mentally and emotionally, right? You got to put it all on stage or in
yep,
the screen.
yep,
We just talked about that, right? So, and as you said earlier, if you're acting as a product, and so that when you're done, delivering your product, we got to move on. So you have to create the space of feeling comfortable, happy, and safe for yourself. If you use acting and performance as the sole mechanism in which you need to express your trauma, your emotions, your well being, and you have no brakes on the car to help slow you down,
right,
you're going to run into trouble. I mean, we all know hundreds of actors that have
yep,
unfortunately, taken drastic measures and made decisions that we wish they hadn't, right?
right,
There's what is it, the 27 Club, I think is what it's called, right? The Heath Ledgers, the Amy Winehouses, right? All those. And when we as the audience hear about that, we're like, how is that possible? I mean, I talked
right,
about Robin Williams 10 minutes ago, right?
right,
How could that possibly have happened, right? And it is because for whatever reason or reasons, they did not feel comfortable, happy, and safe to a point where they saw no possibility of that being the case, right?
right,
So if you're listening now and you have never acted before and you think that acting can be your therapy, great, awesome. Audition for stuff, come to Misty's Coffee Talks, come to our community, right? That's why this exists.
yeah,
But also know that we can't be a support system for you if you're not a support system for yourself, right?
mm,
You've got to know what your limits are. You've got to know what it is that you need to say when you need to stop. Just make sure you say, hey, I need a minute. If
right, right,
we can be there for you, A, as long as you let us, and B, as long as you know that that's what you need.
mm-hmm,
That doesn't mean you shouldn't go out for those, I'll use your term, darker roles, or you doesn't mean you can't face your demons via acting.
right.
But don't let that consume you.
I think you can, I'm going to be, I think you can face your demons. I don't think that playing a role to exercise your demons or to wrestle with them in character, I don't want you bringing your open wounds to a role and looking for healing there. That's not how it works. And I think it's very important to have started your healing process, because if you have had, look, I'm just gonna, like, okay, a traumatic event happened to you last week. I don't want you seeking out that role where that traumatic event is happening to your character and you have to revisit a trauma that you have not begun to process or heal. It's incredibly dangerous. And if there is, I don't think many of us have walked this earth unscathed. And so there are things in my life that I am still in the process of dealing with, that I am not going to play that specific role. I'm just not, because I'm not processed with it yet. Acting and playing a character is not the place for active healing. The act of acting is therapeutic. The process of it can have a cathartic effect, but it is not therapy. And you cannot, as soon as you do that, you have so blurred the lines between character and self that you're creating a ridiculous mess. Does that make sense?
It does. I agree with you that acting is not therapy, it is therapeutic. And I think there is a distinction there. Right? Actors are not mental health professionals, directors are not mental health professionals.
Right.
And so, yeah, at a certain point, if you're really diving in deep to something that is truly traumatic to you, you can start playing with fire. That being said, I don't know that I entirely disagree, or I'm sorry, that I entirely agree with the notion that you can't bring your trauma to the stage or screen. And I'll give you an example. So,
pause. To be clear, that's not what I said. I didn't say
you're saying you don't want actors bringing fresh, undealt with trauma.
You cannot bring your trauma to a role if you have not dealt with your trauma. It is not, inside a role is not the place for you to process your trauma. You have to do the work with your trauma. You cannot pass it to the character and say, okay, character, fix that for me. It will not work.
I hear you. I don't think it's that black and white. So I'll give you an example. In college, so my relationship with my father is ups and downs, as many do. So in college, I actually wasn't speaking to him. And there was an inciting event that caused that, which is not relevant to the story or the podcast. But I was in an acting class. We were told to write a monologue and act it out, right? And what I ended up writing was me basically yelling at him, telling him all the things that I never actually got to tell him due to the incident, right? And I tore into him, right? And I'm it's Clint Eastwood style. I yelled at an empty chair. And it was very emotional, right? But it worked for me. It was very cathartic. I felt much better having just gotten it out, even in a performance-based thing, even in a college class, because of that. So I agree that acting should not be in place of any therapeutic healing. But I think sometimes it is a way to process. It does help.
I don't think that you were playing a role. You were yourself processing, giving voice to something that needed to have voice. But I don't think that was a character's life. I think that was your process out loud, and it was a powerful monologue as Josh.
Maybe. I think that
No, stop. Josh just agreed with me. That's good. We're good. I don't think we need
to. The podcast over.
Podcast is over. I don't think we need to search for disagreement. I think it's okay.
I said maybe. I didn't say yes.
I heard yes.
I bet you did. Second of all, okay, fine. I will give you the yes. I'll grant it. In that moment, that was perhaps me not truly acting. But you and I, not you and I, you had us do a scene in class on A Star Is Born, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this scene in particular because I happened to be driving while I was doing it.
Yeah.
But I also, at the risk of sounding like an asshole, I think I nailed it. I did a really good job with it, right? And I was letting out much, but I was also driving back from a very stressful moment, right? It was late. I had done a lot of work. I was exhausted. I was genuinely using therapy that night as an outlet, right? As a way to
right.
get me out of my head. And I will tell you, I channeled all that into that scene. And I again, I think I did a really good job with it, but that was absolutely me using acting as a therapy tool. That was me getting the emotions out, right? And that was not a character that I had written or that I was or that I could relate to, right? So fair enough on the college example. But again, I think that there are ways you can use acting to process. I do agree with you. It should not be the only outlet, nor should it be your sole mission, right? Don't go into acting to find therapy. Go into acting because you want to perform. And if it becomes therapeutic, and it can and should in some cases, great, that's a bonus.
Right. Yeah. I hear you. I think that, I think my personal struggle is I work with a lot of actors in their teen years, middle and high school even, and there is a desire there's a desire to take the worst thing that's ever happened and find a role just like that, because there's a sense of, oh, I can make this so authentic, I can do that. And I want us to be careful about being too eager to use our sadness, our sorrow, our tragedy, our trauma as a way to produce an effective, you know what I mean? I think that it becomes a bit exploitative. And man, if you're out there exploiting yourself, you best believe the industry won't have any problem jumping on board with you. So
all right, so if we go back to the original premise of, is acting therapeutic? Yes, but it is also acting, right? It is, and I'm going to draw the line again between therapy and therapeutic, right? There's an avenue for you to deal with, to express, and perhaps, in my opinion, even process emotions. But that should not be the goal. That is not the intention of performance. It is meant to be expressive, not a place where that's the only way you can be expressive.
Right. Telling someone else's story.
Yeah, either the writer or the character or the director, every combination thereof. I mean, you bring elements of your story into it. Yeah. But that's the goal is still performance.
Yep. Yeah. I'm still processing, I'm still thinking. And I think that as long as we are processing and thinking and having conversations about it, I think that the arts are a powerful place to be at the forefront of mental health and being aware of it and being free to talk about it. And you don't have to show up to set and say everything's great if everything isn't great. It's okay to not be okay.
Blanket rule, anybody listening or anybody that ends up in an acting community with me, you are free to tell me anything you'd like. No judgment, safe space. Comfort, happiness, and safety will be my priority. But you'll also get some really, really stupid jokes out of it. So sorry in advance.
So if that doesn't make you comfortable, happy, or safe, what's the safe word? How do we tap out?
Careful, Misty. It's our first podcast. I don't want to give you my safe word yet.
Oh my God. Jesus. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Josh. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. Hey, guys, we're going to drop a new podcast every Monday. So wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, we're on YouTube. If you're watching us, then you've seen this chaos, and God bless you for still being here. Stay tuned for more. Josh, as always, thank you.
Thank you so much, and can't wait to listen to the others, and I'll probably listen to this one too, because again, arrogant son of a bitch.
Of course. All right, take care.
Bye,
everybody.